Tape Deck Media.
Hey folks, Aaron here with a quick heads up. So we ended up having to record a small chunk of this episode on a separate day than the rest of it. So if you happen to notice during the promo videos that our guest suddenly stops talking for about 10 minutes, it's only because that segment was recorded a few days later with just the three of us. Alright, now that that's out of the way, enjoy the episode.
See you at the party, Richter!
Hello, and welcome to See You at the Potty, Richter. I'm Chris Chapman, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts, Aaron Frescus.
Hello.
And Joseph Beck Castro.
Hello, cutie pies.
Today, we are going to be looking at some production info for Arnold's 1990 comedy family vehicle, Kindergarten Cop. We are going to be joined by a very special guest, Mr. Dave Callens. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, that's me.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So yeah, now I'm just going to throw it over to Aaron, who's going to tell us all about this, I'm sure, very normal production.
Totally. First off, before we dive in, I need to make a quick correction about something from a previous episode. So because Kindergarten Cop was Arnold Schwarzenegger's second time working with Ivan Reitman, one of the first things I did was go back and read through my notes when we covered Twins. That way I could avoid any, anything we already covered, basically. And holy crap, I was really doing some, Screen Rant caliber, level of research for that one. It's not good.
Why?
Anyway, as far as the correction, in that episode, I mentioned that Ivan Reitman brought in two writers to rewrite the film, who were Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod, that he'd previously worked with on the 1983 film Trading Places, which Harris and Weingrod had written. The only problem is that Ivan Reitman was in no way involved with Trading Places.
Oh.
It was just dumb because I was like, wait, how did I manage to do that? Because I was like, why? I tried to find out, looking, there's got to be a reason why I wrote this down. Why else would I write it down? Didn't find anything. So actually, listen to the Twins episode, hoping that maybe I didn't say it. But no, I did. So I'm otherwise I wouldn't be correcting it now. But anyway, okay. So anyway, on to Kindergarten Cop, which reunites Arnold Schwarzenegger with the Twins director, Ivan Reitman. And to find out how they both became attached to the film, we're going to take a second to fill in the gap between the two movies. Ooh. So Twins was released in December 1988. And in addition to becoming the year's fifth highest grossing film worldwide, it also opened up doors for Schwarzenegger career-wise by showing that he could actually do comedy. It was also Arnold's final film of the 80s, with his next three projects all being released in 1990. One of which was the Tales from the Crypt episode he directed, which aired in April.
I'm out. Who directed that?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Directed an episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, he directed one that was starred Kelly Preston, and it's called The Switch. It's the first or second episode of the second season, I believe. Yeah. It's fine.
Yeah, we watched it. It was all right.
But and the other one was Total Recall, which was released in June. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious if he was working on both of those projects at the same time, because I'm not sure how long production lasted on Total Recall, because we haven't done it yet. But I'm assuming it had to be at least 90 days, right?
Yeah, probably longer than that, I feel like, for a movie.
I could be wrong, but don't most shows try to have each episode shot and wrapped, I think in a week or something?
Yeah, I think they try to do them in a week, but I don't know how, because Tales from the Crypt was what, HBO?
HBO, yeah.
So I don't know how their productions work. They might be a little different than normal television. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sure we'll find out when we do Total Recall. But Arnold really doesn't talk too much about Kindergarten Cop in his 2012 autobiography, but he does mention the first time he read the script for it, which was in the spring of '89. And he was a busy guy at the time. He was filming Total Recall and expecting his first child with Maria Shriver. He ends up giving his first impressions of the script, saying, quote, "One day in my trailer, wading through scripts, I came across a draft of Kindergarten Cop. I couldn't put it down. The idea of a tough detective who has to go undercover teaching a bunch of preschoolers made me laugh. People in Hollywood always say never act with kids or animals. They're impossible to work with, and they look so cute on screen that they steal the show. He says, I already had experience with animals as Conan, and the book actually does, real quick, the book actually does...
Wait, he's counting Conan as experience with animals?
Yeah.
Was it the giant snake?
A
Or
terrifying experience with the dogs, yeah.
Exactly. Like the book does include a picture example, like right next to the text of this, which was just a production still of Conan punching the camel in the face, which I thought was like a
Oh yeah, experience with animals. Got it.
There you go.
weird inclusion. He's like, I experienced with animals, just smash cut to him punching a camel in the face.
Yeah,
Also,
that's
by
what
the
he
way-
means by experience.
I feel like every actor says that they couldn't put the script down when they're talking about whatever movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's been a ton of bad movies where they couldn't put the script down. You know?
It's just because it's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, that picture is not in the book. Just making that clear. I just want to make that clear. Like it's 100% not in the
Damn.
book.
But that picture is in the camel's autobiography.
It's when he quit show business. They're being attacked.
They say never
Anyway,
work with Austrians, and they were right.
Yeah, he continues by saying, quote, I'd already had experience with animals as Conan, and they'd been fine. But I'd been interested in doing a movie with kids for years, and the prospect of
That's a
becoming
picture
a
of
dad...
punching a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And the prospect of becoming a dad inspired me. I thought, great, let the kids steal the show, as long as the movie succeeds, end quote. He then says his next step was to get the Twins director, Ivan Reitman, on board, who in the spring of 89, I believe, from the timeline I kind of found, but I believe was most likely in the middle of reshoots for Ghostbusters 2,
Yeah.
which from the little about it I read, seems like it wasn't the most enjoyable movie to make. Just had a bunch of problems, like pretty much from the get-go, that we're not going to really get into.
It also, in my opinion, also was not an enjoyable movie. I did not like that one.
See, I like that movie, but again, I think that's like nostalgia because like I loved that movie when I was a kid.
Well, I loved
So-
the first one, so I went to see the second one. I'm a little bit older than you guys. So me and my friend went to see the second one, and we made the mistake of going to a Saturday matinee. So it was like us as teenagers and then like a million children, which just made the experience that much worse.
Yeah.
Yes. Ugh.
I watched the second one first, so that was like...
So same.
Oof.
I, I liked it more than the first one for a long time.
I mean, I still do.
All right, we're
but-
shutting this podcast down.
Yeah, you should check out the behind the scenes stuff from there because it's interesting. Anyway, so from there, Arnold kind of skips forward from there in his book saying, quote, then I asked Ivan Reitman if he'd direct me again. We both wanted changes in the script to add social relevance. I wanted to add a physical fitness theme, and he wanted it to touch on broken homes, child abuse, and family life. But we agreed to go ahead.
You know, that you mentioned that, it does kind of, now that with that in mind, it does kind of feel like those were just sort of crammed in.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason behind that too. So, which we'll get to in just a second. But he finishes by saying, so since Ivan already had Ghostbusters 2 in the works for the 1989 holidays, we started planning Kindergarten Cop for Christmas 1990, end quote. That's basically all he had to say about the movie in his book, besides like a mention that Kindergarten Cop ended up being a hit before transitioning into talking about some movie made with James Cameron the next year. I don't know. And I wasn't even going to mention that Arnold quote from his book because it's pretty much just basic info about the summary and the release date. But while I was reading about Ghostbusters 2, I came across a pretty interesting article featuring Ivan Reitman that definitely made it seem like he might have been going through some shit right before signing on to Kindergarten Cop. So it was a December 1989 Los Angeles Times article titled "Hollywood's Hottest Comedy Director Takes a Break." And in it, Ivan Reitman discusses a few of the reasons that led to his decision to tell the studios behind both Twins and Ghostbusters, which were Universal and Columbia, that he had absolutely no interest in doing sequels for either film. He just done Ghostbusters 2. Yeah. And so he basically told them they needed a break, with one of the reasons being the negative reception from both critics and audiences towards Ghostbusters 2. Yeah. which had been out for about 6 months at the time and had been shit on by pretty much everyone except for me. At the time. And still.
You'll come around. We'll convert you.
But he does give a good reasons for why the Ghostbusters sequel may not have done as well as the first film. Which, David, tell me if I'm biased, but anyway, saying quote.
I'm gonna make a new podcast dedicated to shitting on Ghostbusters 2, and it's gonna be called "Bustin' Does Not Make Me Feel Good."
Ghostbusters poo. I don't know.
So he says about it. He says in comedy, the element of surprise is everything. And I think once that element of surprise is gone, once people know there's going to be ghosts, there's going to be big ghosts, and they're expecting something big at the end, a lot of the tools that are at your disposal are gone, end quote, which I found funny because that's like totally a similar vibe to what Terminator 3 director Jonathan Mostow said when he was looking back at that movie. He's like, because Jonathan Mostow basically said about Terminator 3, well, Terminator 2 already did all this cool stuff. So what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to be like thrilled, like wowed by anything else. They already saw the Liquid Metal Man.
Is that the one that you posted that like snippet from that interview with the guy who wrote it about how he was just shitting on everything?
Yeah.
No. Well, that was the writer. Yeah.
But it was about T3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about T3 though. But that guy's. If you should read that blog if you've like seen that movie. It's just like bitter, very very bitter. But that's true. Is that part of the reason why it's shit? Like just because it's rehashing the same story beats as the first one, or it was
just a stupid story.
Okay. Just curious.
What was the story?
I haven't seen it since that first time in theaters. I've seen a piece of it here and there, but the way I remember it is like it was just the cheesiest, like love conquers all. Like if we all hold hands and sing, we'll beat the villain.
Yep,
the ending is kind of corny.
They got New York together.
Yeah.
The Statue of Liberty comes to life and rallies all the New Yorkers.
Yeah. While what's the song called?
I'd like to buy the world of Coke.
Love keeps lifting me higher.
Lifting me higher. It's like Jackie Wilson.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So good. Anyway, so Ivan Reitman also expressed his disappointment about Ghostbusters 2 not doing as well financially as the first one, with it only being 1989's 7th highest grossing movie worldwide and 8th highest grossing movie domestically, which must have been just embarrassing for him.
I was going to say, that sounds like it's not bad, but you got to remember, there are only 11 movies released that year.
It's just like, that poor guy.
Yeah.
Although, I guess, comparatively, the first Ghostbusters was the top-grossing film of 1984 domestically, and then the second highest-grossing worldwide, which I think the one that beat it out was Beverly Hills Cop, I believe. And then that same LA Times article mentions that Ivan Reitman's 7 films prior to Kindergarten Cop had grossed a combined total of $3 billion worldwide.
Jesus.
Making him the most successful comedy director at that time. I'm not sure if that's still the case.
No way it's still the case.
No?
No way.
I was trying
the
like
biggest comedy director.
Judd Apatow?
Yeah, Apatow for sure. Maybe
or
like someone like
the one
Todd
that
Phillips.
the one that made The Hangover.
Yeah,
I was going to say.
Yeah, that'll be it.
But yeah, I guess so. Like he did have a few films after this, but they weren't nearly as like big as those. Anyway,
are we going debate rules where we're not going to fact check you?
I mean, you can. Part of the reason this took so long is because I was like, I tried to make it clear when I couldn't find, like, it's all, basically anything I found on IMDb, I let you know because everything on IMDb it's just people posting stuff on there. But anyway, so by the way, the 7 prior films were Ghostbusters 2. I can only think of 3 of them. Ghostbusters 2, Twins, Legal Eagles, which I've never heard of. Ghostbusters.
Robert Redford. Legal Eagles?
Yes, and Deborah Winger.
Really?
Did you watch that?
Winger? I barely know her. No, I've never seen that one. I just remember it was out.
Okay. Ghostbusters, Stripes, Meatballs, and then Cannonball Girls. Which was one of his first ones.
That one sounds fake. Is that a real movie? Was that was it in the Cannonball Run cinematic universe? Or was it unrelated?
Same thing. Actually, I didn't want to look that one up, but I'm pretty. So we're going to assume it's the same thing. That was Sally Field's movie. Anyway, okay. Sally Fields. I keep calling her that because that's what Arnold calls her instead of just Sally Field. He like in one interview he called her Sally Fields, and now every time I do, anyway.
Yeah.
So while looking up what those 7 movies were, I noticed that the box office numbers didn't quite add up to the $3 billion total that was mentioned in that LA Times article.
Are we under conspiracy? Is this like a follow the money thing? Like,
well,
we're gonna get to the bottom of this.
I was, but then I realized that they probably also included VHS sales, which I kind of confirmed when I saw the VHS sales numbers for that first Ghostbusters, which, holy shit, like released in October 1985, sold 400,000 copies by February 1986. So it earned $32 million in home video sales in the first 4 months that it was released.
Yeah. Here's a little old man tidbit for you. When VHS was new, like one of the first VHS cassettes we got was Raiders of the Lost Ark. it was $80.
Holy shit!
Damn.
No wonder the sales are so crazy for that. I'm curious how that did on VHS, because was that one of the first ones?
It was probably pretty early, yeah.
Okay. Well, you guys were also, what do you, like, live with, like, the Rockefellers or something like that? Like, shit. Because was that, like, your Christmas and birthday present or something? That was...
Yeah, we sold one of the cars so we could get rid of the lost art.
Anyway, as far as the VHS sales, even if you don't include those sales, Reitman's 4 films prior to Kindergarten Cops, which were Twins, Legal Eagles, and The Two Ghostbusters, still made a combined total of $800 million worldwide in box office sales.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, though, his negative experience making Ghostbusters 2 was bad enough that Reitman decided he just wanted to take a break from directing comedy.
Huh.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, with him telling the LA Times, that same LA Times article, saying, quote, "Usually as I'm finishing a film, I start gestating an idea for the next film. I purposely sort of forced myself not to this time. I think the break will help me develop a fresh perspective on what I'm doing." And this quote right here is what is a pain in the ass about researching these, because that quote, and even just the timing of the LA Times article in general, kind of contradicts what we just heard from Arnold. Because in his book, he jumps from, like I said, asking Ivan Reitman to direct, to both of them wanting script changes, to then finally them deciding to shoot for a Christmas 1990 release because, quote, Ivan already had Ghostbusters 2 in the works for the 1989 holidays, which actually, no, he didn't. Like, Ghostbusters 2 came out in June 1989.
I think we got to chalk that up to a Mandela effect.
Yeah. Well, we also figured out that he's like it took me a while to realize, like, I can't take what he's saying in the book because I got to fact check the book basically because the dates aren't correct. So I'm like, wait a second. I thought in the book he said this, and it's anyway. So Ghostbusters 2 came out in July 1989, and that Ivan Reitman quote I just read is from December 1989. So it seems likely, and this is 100% speculation on my part, by the way, but it seems likely that Ivan Reitman was possibly in full break mode when Arnold approached him about directing Kindergarten Cop.
Should we get Ivan and Arnold on the pod just to sort it out?
Please, let's. Yes,
absolutely.
Especially Ivan Reitman actually would be a get.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think he's taking a break right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's definitely taking a break. But if that's true, and Ivan Reitman actually was in a break in '89, then I'm guessing Arnold's promise of script changes were probably one of the ways he was able to convince him to direct the film.
Yeah. And
I only say that because in that same article, Reitman admits what could bring him back to direct, saying, quote, "Oh, sorry, I see what you're laughing at." Yeah.
I just like, he just gives him the script and he's like, I'm not really doing movies right now. He's like, you could put child abuse in it.
Reitman says in the article, quote, "All of the films I've made to date have been relatively large-scale films with elaborate concepts, and I'd like to try a few things on a more human scale and see how it works out. It's not so much that I want to turn to serious drama right now and bare my soul any more than it's bared. It's just I think it would be fun to tell a smaller story, less plot and more characters. I think I have to move people emotionally much more." Yeah, end quote. But that definitely helps, like, Arnold's mention of the script. Like, it helped to make it, like, it made more sense on the script change. Like, what Ivan Reitman asked. Arnold's stuff already made sense with the physical fitness stuff.
Yeah, that's all he ever wants to do. Yeah,
exactly. I'm not sure why he said Reitman was busy with Ghostbusters 2 at the time, but whatever. Like,
just misremembering or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Also interesting too, like, based on what you've said so far, it seems like Arnold is the one who made this movie happen. Like, he got Ivan to direct, which makes me wonder, how did he end up with a script? Because you wouldn't think, like, someone's writing the script with Arnold in mind.
Wow, Dave, you're just transitioning me, like, perfect, right into the next part. Okay, so before we get there, but before we move on from the director, there was one piece of trivia from IMDb that I wanted to mention that says Ron Howard was considered to direct as the film. This is I think I copied this directly from IMDb, but so the grammar anyway. Ron Howard was considered to direct as the film was made by the production company by his production company, Imagine Entertainment, which he founded with producer Brian Grazer. But Arnold Schwarzenegger said he would only do the movie if Ivan Reitman directed. So Brian Grazer eventually secured Schwarzenegger to star in the film, and Ron Howard went on to direct Backdraft.
That's actually kind of funny because that's like Ron Howard's like, hey, I want to direct this. And I was like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like it could be true, but I couldn't find any mention of it besides the IMDb trivia, which, as we've mentioned before, anyone with an email address can add to. And I'm assuming that's definitely how my favorite piece of trivia got on there, which says, quote, Catherine O'Hara was considered for the role of Phoebe O'Hara, hence the character has the same last name as the actress. But she was busy with Home Alone and turned down the offer. I'm like, because that's how casting works, right? Like, they always like to start with actors that have the same last name as the character before offering it to anyone else.
It makes it easier on the actor. They know what their motivation is. They can relate.
Exactly. Like, I'm pretty sure Christian Bale was only was only cast as Batman because the Warlock hired by Warner Brothers failed to resurrect John Wayne. Like, still waiting for.
God damn! Could you imagine John Wayne playing Bruce Wayne? That would be amazing. Oh my god.
Okay. So, moving on. Kindergarten Cop had a few different writers credited, with the original story and screenplay written by former actor is that right, by the way? I was gonna okay, so he was a former actor, but he turned to screenwriter. Do you need to say the former part when you put actor turned screenwriter?
I guess if he completely stopped acting, you would say former actor.
I'm like 99% sure he did. So.
Yeah. I see your point, though. It'd be like saying they might as well say former actor turned present screenwriter.
Yeah. So that's why I wasn't sure if. Yeah, that's why. Anyway, it's in quote. Okay, written by some guy named Murray Salem, who unfortunately ended up passing away in 1997 from complications related to AIDS. And even though Kindergarten Cop is his only writing credit listed on IMDb, Salem actually had a fairly successful career during the 15 years he spent as a screenwriter, which he ended up selling 8 of his 9 scripts that he wrote.
Wow.
Nice.
They were all based on police working undercover to school.
And all this information about Murray Salem comes from a 2016 article it's called clevescene.com. It's called Cleveland Scene. It's a Cleveland newspaper. Anyway, but it's a profile of his life. But yeah, 7 of those 8 scripts he sold went unmade for more or less being too similar to other projects. Like, they'd either be bought up and then eventually scrapped once a different studio released a similar project, or a studio would buy his script with the express purpose of shelving it due to the premise being too similar to another project that they already had in the works. Which,
now I'm thinking he's written like Kindergarten Terminator and Kindergarten Conan.
Just keeps doing the same thing. Which that's awesome that he was able to make a pretty good living selling his scripts, but that's still kind of gotta suck, like at least a little bit that you're.
Yeah, that none of them get made.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be just the racket he's on. He's like, oh man, I hear they're making 2 volcano movies. I'm gonna write a movie, Lava, and they have to buy it.
Well, I was just like imagining someone asking him, like, have you written anything lately? And him being like, well, have you seen The Devil's Advocate? They're like, yeah, did you write that? He's like, well, no, but I did write something like a similar story that Warner Brothers bought the script for, but. Like, that was just to make sure that no one else would make it first. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Have you heard of Kindergarten Advocate?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going on that joke. I'm sorry.
The Devil's Advocate and The First Wives Club were 2 of the ones that were like cited as like reasons that the studio bought up the scripts that were similar to it.
I thought you were going to say they actually started off as very similar scripts.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Murray Salem eventually decided that in order to make a name for himself, he needed to switch gears, write something more commercially viable than his usual scripts, which seemed to lean way more to the dramatic side. I think one was about like kids like teenagers in prison, and then the other one was about like a Argentinian or Colombian revolution or something like that. But then he also had the First Wives Club one and the one about the devil falling in love, I think. So it's kind of all over the place. Anyway, so he was inspired by funny stories from during a 20th high school reunion that a former classmate was telling about teaching kindergarten. So,
oh my God! Now I'm picturing that guy watching the movie like, that motherfucker. Yeah. I told him this story. This is me. Where's my credit?
Yeah. See, you can't do anything about that, right? It's just that son of a bitch.
No, because at the end of every movie, they put all situations are fictional and whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly.
So Salem came up with a story that was part Lethal Weapon, part Baby Boom, which he wrote specifically with Schwarzenegger in mind. But yeah, he ended up selling Kindergarten Cop to Imagine Entertainment, which brought Arnold on board to star.
So wait, so he just wrote the script as like, here's some crazy teacher thing.
Yeah.
Sold it to Imagine. So now someone at Imagine was like, you know who'd be good in this?
Well, you can like the article said that he wrote it with Schwarzenegger in mind. Like do they usually put like a Schwarzenegger type or something like that in like in the
a
script?
lot of scripts do that. Like, oh, this character's like a Brad Pitt type, or
okay,
especially if it's someone marketable.
Okay, yeah, which I think Arnold was at the time. I'm not positive, but I don't know. But yes, he was. Yeah. So Imagine brought in Arnold, and then they eventually brought Ivan Reitman to direct. They then Ivan Reitman technically then ended up hiring a couple of screenwriters to punch up the script and handle those rewrites that Arnold mentioned, which Murray Salem was obviously not very happy about, but he kind of, it was basically out of his control. Like he knew he could do it.
Doesn't that happen to every writer? I feel like that happens to every movie.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of funny because like he stole his friend's stories to make a movie. So his friend's mad, and then someone changed it and it's like now he's mad, so it just keeps getting like shifted up a little.
By the way, these were the same two writers that were brought in were the same two writers I mentioned at the top of the episode that Ivan Reitman brought in to rewrite Twins, Timothy Harris and Herschel Weingrod. Yeah, the same guys that he worked with on Trading Places.
Got it.
I think I have it written down, so it's got to be true. So
actually, those two writers, that's what Trading Places was based on. Was those guys had a similar thing happen in their life?
Yeah, they kept Trading Places with the original writers of stories. But we barely bothered to mention it in the Twins episode. But Harrison and Weingrod had been writing partners since the early '80s. In addition to Trading Places and Twins, they also wrote Brewster's Millions and My Stepmother is an Alien in the '80s. And then
Brewster's Luck. Millions was fun.
Brewster's Millions. I know I've watched. I get it mixed
Richard
up
Pryor,
with
John Candy.
The Toy.
Oh,
which
wow, that did not age well, did it?
Which I don't know. Brewster's Millions is the one where like he has to spend like $1 million in like
he has to spend
a certain amount of time.
$30 million in 30 days, and if he does, he gets $300 million.
Right.
Okay. It's
like an inheritance from an old.
But he can't have anything to show for it. He can't benefit from it. He's just got to waste it.
Yeah, he has to be completely broke at the end of the 30 days.
I mean, I could do that. I'm doing that now. I don't have millions. My Stepmother is an Alien. I didn't. What? That's like who's that?
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd is Kim Basinger. And then in the 90s they wrote Pure Luck with Martin Short and Danny Glover.
Short.
Which I remember the poster for, but never watched. Yeah, it's they both have bad luck, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that being pretty terrible.
And then they wrote Space Jam, which is just, a movie. Sure. I like it. But again, nostalgia. By the way, they did not write Falling Down, which I credited them with writing in the Twins episode. Just throwing that out there. They did produce it, though, so at least there's a connection, which is good.
You would think they wrote it. It's very similar.
Yeah, it's a Space Jam.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, as far as Kindergarten Cop, what do you
Real quick, Falling Down. You guys saw that one, right?
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen it.
Oh my God. It's such a good movie, but it's so interesting because like you start out rooting for this guy and then he turns into the complete villain.
Yeah.
So it's just a very interesting take on a protagonist.
I mean, I was still rooting for him. I've had that kind of date where it's like, just leave the guy alone.
But like when he's going to like murder his ex-wife, you're like, oh, this guy.
Well, I thought he was just going to visit his kid.
Leave him alone to murder his ex-wife.
He just wanted to visit his kid. Like, we've all been there. I don't know why I'm siding with him. Anyway, it looks like the wrong side.
Trying to get canceled.
Yeah. Anyway, so as far as Kindergarten Cop, Crack.com interviewed Timothy Harris, one of the writers, rewriters, in 2022 for an article they were doing about Twins, with Harris mentioning that Ivan Reitman brought him and Herschel Weingrod in to rewrite Kindergarten Cop because Reitman did not care for the original script. Harris also said that the Kindergarten Cop script suffered from the same problem that he felt was an issue with Twins, or the Twins script, the original one, which was its forgettable action thriller B-plot. He then continued by giving an example while simultaneously like patting himself on the back, saying, quote, "People remember Schwarzenegger in the classroom with those kids, but they don't remember the even more complicated and, in a way, more central thriller plot," unquote. And like real quick, dumb question, but would you guys say the secondary plot is the like in Kindergarten Cop, because I feel like it kind of switches and then switches back. Like as far as like the central plot and then like the subplot or whatever. Like,
Well, it does feel like disjointed in the sense that like the way I remember it, having just recently watched it, changed it a little bit. But the way I remember it is like it's a fish out of water.
Yeah.
It's this guy trying to teach kids. And then it's like, oh, yeah, he was also trying to track down this drug dealer. Like almost like they just threw that on for like, hey, we need a purpose for this. So there you go.
Which, I mean, worked for me. Well, and then the which he shit way more on the Twins one, but it was an article about Twins. But for Twins, he was talking about the stolen part that Vincent steals. Like that's the thing. That part of the story.
Yeah, I feel like Twins has a way more like sort of weird and outlandish B plot. Like the whole thing where he's got like this super secret piece of technology that's worth millions and millions of dollars, and there's like hitmen running around like taking people
like
hostage.
The flux capacitor kind of thing?
Kind of. Like I don't really know what it is, but it's something.
It's a plane part turbine something.
It's
or
like
other,
a super plane jet engine.
Yeah,
or
I don't
like that,
remember.
worth millions of dollars.
But
like,
he
it
said
just seems really out of place versus like the character stuff that they're doing in Twins.
But that's what he's saying is like that's supposed to be the plot is like that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And you don't really think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that was a problem with both films. He also said that part of it with at least Twins was that Ivan Reitman isn't an action director. So that might have hurt it a little bit. I don't know. Anyways, moving on to casting. So Arnold Schwarzenegger supposedly made $12 million for the role. But like Dave mentioned during the summary, there were a few different actors they considered to play John Kimball. By the way, the two you only mentioned two, right, Dave?
I forget, probably.
Okay.
We'll fix it in post.
Okay. By the way, there were a few that I kept seeing, but I couldn't find a source for besides being mentioned on IMDb trivia. But before we get to those three, I could confirm with the first two we mentioned, which were Bill Murray and Patrick Swayze, who both passed. Mm. And then the only other one I know for sure was Danny DeVito, who they supposedly passed on due to his height, although I couldn't confirm that was the actual reason because none of the sites that I read that on bothered to provide any source. And it feels like such an obvious reason because it's not like the producers were about to offer him the role. And then one of them's like, what, he's only 4'10"? Are you fucking kidding me? No, pass. Like, they knew how short he was.
Yeah.
See, this is why I go to, I know you love IMDb. I love Wikipedia. That's where I get all my shit from.
Yes, because links.
They cite everything.
Yes.
And all three of those you mentioned have links to like articles.
Yes, that's why.
Sources.
That's where I got those. I get most of the stuff and then trying to do Google stuff. But yeah, IMDb.
I could not imagine Bill Murray in that role.
Yeah.
Because he's like so dry and so, I don't know.
I think Bill Murray would have been fine in the classroom parts. I don't think that would have been an issue. Like he had done Meatballs and stuff with kids before that. I can't imagine him as the cop part.
For sure.
like in any way, shape, or
not at all. Not even a little.
There's no way he takes that seriously enough to be a detective. I don't know.
See, I think Danny DeVito would have been great because not so okay. Again, with the cop part, it might have been like okay, well, like
he would have sold it. That would have been a little over the top, but it would have worked.
But like with the kids, like considering the fact that he's probably only a few inches taller than most of them, you got some pretty good interactions right there.
Yeah,
like I don't know,
because he could play a really good dirtbag, and a dirtbag having to go in and like play nice for the kids. I don't know. That's kind of funny. But
you also got to consider like who were the other big action stars that were also trying to branch out in comedy at that time because there was a Stallone for sure was a big one.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys know the sorry, this is way off topic. You know the Throw Mama from not Throw Stop or My Mama Will Shoot. You know that story, right?
Yeah.
How Schwarzenegger's tricked him into
it.
Yeah.
Because
that's fucking hilarious.
That's great.
Which was I think that he probably
that was 1990, right?
Was it?
Or was that earlier?
I think it was around the same time.
Yeah, I know it was around the same time. I'm not sure exactly when, but well, I also have never seen a lot of Stallone's like 80s besides like the Rambo. Like I've never like Cobra or I don't know what else
I've never
he
seen
did.
Cobra.
God, Cobra was so bad. Oh my god.
Was it like because it just reminded me of Raw Deal, like his version of Raw Deal, which
it was so much worse because there literally was no plot. Like he was against these like this cabal of like psychotic killers. But all they did was they would stand in a warehouse and like clang axes together. Like they had no, that's it. There were just clips of, and then they would go fight Stallone. It was the dumbest thing in the world.
That's amazing.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I want to watch this shit.
Anyway, okay. So for the ones I couldn't confirm, first off, Jack Nicholson, who I would assume would just be like a PG-13 version of his character from Chinatown or something like that.
You know who would have been fun from that era? Kurt Russell.
That's actually one that I have. One, he keeps getting grouped together with like on a list with Kurt Russell, Chuck Norris, and Robin Williams. We're three that kept getting grouped together.
Walk into a bar.
Yeah, and there was one website that said that the claim, like that rumor, fact, or whatever, came from quote the production team. Which, okay. Can you be like less specific about it? Like, because that's pretty much anyone from the director to like a PA that was fired. Like, did you hear from one of the kids?
Sure, like craft services or
Oh, circling back to Stallone real quick.
Yes.
Do you remember Tango and Cash?
See, I didn't watch that
Kurt
one
Russell
either.
and so good.
I realized that
was Stallone trying his hand at more comedic stuff.
Oh yeah, wasn't there
It was the action comedy.
Oscar too? It was a comedy which I never saw.
Ugh, we don't talk about that.
What was Oscar?
Snaps Provolone, the gangster.
I don't even know. I didn't watch that one either, but I remember it being a comedy.
Nobody watched it.
Yeah, what was not Turner and Hooch? What was the one you just said?
Tango and Cash.
Tango and Cash.
Yeah. Oh, I love that one because
great movie.
Stallone's like the by the book cop.
Yeah.
You know, and Kurt Russell's the loose cannon, and they're like, we're not going to be partners, but then they have to be partners. I think at one point, Stallone, they pull over like a oil rig. I think this is the first scene, so I'm not spoiling much. And he like shoots it, and cocaine comes out. And he's like, taste this. Like, it's cocaine. Like, how did he know?
Yeah.
Like, he's just good.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. Good thing it wasn't fucking oil in there.
I was about to say, isn't that like the most dangerous fucking thing you could do?
Yeah.
I need to start watching Stallone movies. Like the early 90s ones, I guess, minus Oscar. I don't know. Because Demolition Man's good too. But
Demolition Man's great. You could argue that his first dabble with comedy was over the top. It wasn't intended as a comedy. I think it came off as such.
Yeah.
I remember that one. That one I loved when I was a kid. Turn this hat around, I become a machine. Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't it be a comedy with that fucking premise? Yeah. Someone's just like, hey man, what if we like had a trucker who had a kid and he's got to go around winning arm wrestling tournaments to like pay for his kid's toy or something? I don't know.
Dude, I'm sorry to go so far off topic, but I just went down a rabbit hole earlier today. And do you guys remember the movie or heard of the movie Any Which Way You Can?
Was it the sequel to Any Which Way But Loose?
That's the one I meant, the first one.
Okay.
The Clint Eastwood movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the whole premise is he's just a truck driver who does bare knuckle fighting for extra money.
And then, but there's
That's
also
the whole premise.
there's also an orangutan in it or something like that too,
That's
right?
his buddy. Yeah. He lives with an orangutan.
Well, obviously, that's his buddy.
That's just incidental.
He crosses
that has
some-
nothing to do with the plot.
He gets met. Some motorcycle gang gets mad at him, so he fucks with him for the whole movie. There's like nothing. It's the dumbest thing.
Well,
but it's very over the top in that sense of like, hey, what if we just had a guy who does this?
That's was kind of a thing with the 70s though, wasn't it? Because like I recently watched when we did The Villain. I watched for the first time not Cannonball. Well, I tried to watch Cannonball Run, but that was horrible. Smoking the Bandit.
Whoa, you bite your tongue. Cannonball Run's hilarious.
I didn't
early
finish
Jackie Chan. Come on.
There was early. It was just kind of like which was just a Mad World, but it was like Rat Race basically, right?
Yeah. It's just a reason to race cars. Yeah.
But Smoking the Bandit, I liked. It was just like the same kind of thing to where like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, what's going on? It was just, I don't know.
Yeah, it was back when plot was less important to people. I think.
Yeah.
Just looking cool. You're like, oh man,
right.
Burt Reynolds is so cool.
Oh, Burt Reynolds. He would have been a good kindergarten cop.
He would have been a good kindergarten cop.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be bad.
Because he did his version later with Cop and a Half. Which I know I watched, but I'm assuming I liked as a kid, but I don't know if that's going to hold up. Anyway, so moving on to the rest of the cast, and by the way, any rumored actors from here on out are all unconfirmed because I started, like, as I was looking up, I just like got over it once, like the fourth person I couldn't find anything on. So yeah, anyway, but so for the part of Rachel Crisp / Joyce. The actresses supposedly considered for the role sound like a list from someone who was told to name 6 90s actresses in 10 seconds. So seriously, like, which is weird because the timing of them. Anyway, so they include Helen Hunt, Sandra Bullock, who weren't like, they would have been relatively new.
Wait, which role is this? I'm sorry.
This is for Joyce, Penelope Ann Miller's role.
Okay.
Yeah. They would have been relatively new at the time, so, which, whatever, like, I guess if they auditioned for it, but Julia Roberts, which is a big jump, Like as far as
it's a
like
huge
fame.
step up. Yeah.
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 Brooke Shields, Gina Davis, and then Sally Field for some reason, which
Sally Fields.
sorry, Sally Fields, which I only find strange because she's the same age as Arnold, which whatever, but like Hollywood isn't exactly like the best with like as far as age gaps when it comes to casting like the male and female leads. But I don't know, like
Ooh, tangent. If you haven't seen The Substance, fantastic movie. Just because it talks about topics of like aging actresses and shit like that.
The Substance, is it new?
Yeah.
Yeah. Demi Moore.
Yeah.
Oh,
fucking
okay.
bonkers.
By the way, if
go ahead. I was just going to say, even if you compare her to all the other people on that list.
she's about 20 years older than, she's the same age as Arnold. She's 20 years older.
Yeah.
Like if John Kimball had been played by Walter Matthau, then I could see them considering Sally Field. But like, I don't know. It was just
also a good choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just Bad News Bears again.
So anyway, eventually they decided against that probably fake list of actresses and went with Penelope Ann Miller, who at the time had recently finished working with some of the best actors in the 20th century. Like seriously, she worked
Robin
with
Williams, Chuck Norris, and I forget the third.
Well, she worked with Marlon Brando in The Freshman. She worked with Robert De Niro in Awakenings, and then Pee Wee Herman in Big Top Pee Wee. So like, it's just like a solid list.
Okay, Big Top Pee Wee. No, I'm sorry, the first one, Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
I was recently reading about that, and where Paul Rubens and Phil Hartman, like when they came up with a script, they said they just bought Sid Field's book about screenwriting and just followed the formula. Like, okay, at page 30, I lose my bike. At page 60, I get my bike back.
Nice.
Like they just followed the beat points and wrote a story for it. And like, that's brilliant.
And it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
I don't know, they must have lost the book for. I like the second one, but for that second one, but yeah, she was just like when I saw her in Kindergarten Cop, and still, she just Pee Wee's girlfriend that loves egg salad sandwiches. I don't know. She sort of mentioned like working with them with these minus Pee Wee Herman, but working with like esteemed actors during a 2009 interview she did with AV Club. Saying, quote, I think initially, and working with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but she said, quote, I think initially I kind of thought, am I doing the right thing for my career to be in this movie? She's talking about Kindergarten Cop, obviously. And she continues by saying, I had just done theater and had just come off working with Robert De Niro on Awakenings. And I was just like, Arnold Schwarzenegger? He's like the Barbarian movies and stuff. But... But
then I was reading it and I could not put the script down.
But she says, but I think he did a really good job in this film. It was funny, but it also had suspense, and it was just turned out really well. End quote. But yeah. By the way, Kindergarten Cop was actually Penelope Ann Miller's fourth film that was released in 1990.
Damn!
Wow.
Yeah, with the other three being like Awakening's a Freshman and Downtown. Which
never heard of that one.
Yeah, me neither.
Don't know.
It was not Anthony Michael Hall. It's someone that's in ER.
Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards. They're basically the same person.
Wasn't he Goose in
Yes,
Top Gun?
Goose and Top Gun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now he's also the point guard for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yep, same guy.
Also, Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes. Never mind. Anyway, so okay, so moving on, and I don't have much for the rest of the cast, but Christian Slater was supposedly considered for the role of Cullen Crisp, Arnold's nemesis.
I was hoping he would say he was one of the kindergartners. That would be great.
Apparently, he turned it down in order to avoid becoming typecast, which I kind of call bullshit on this one because from the looks of his IMDb at the time, he seemed way too busy. Like, he appeared in 13 movies within a 3-year period from 1989 to 1991. So he obviously wasn't turning anything down at the time. So I don't know. I don't believe that one.
Well, we talked about, I think in the other pod, we talked about the guy who played Cullen Crisp, how he was from 3 O'Clock High,
yes,
right?
that's my, because I got, at this point I was getting lazy, but my only note was, like, as far as Richard Tyson was, he was in 3 O'Clock High. He was also in one other movie that
4 O'Clock High?
Yes. which was actually a prequel, which is weird. As far as the
it's 4 a.m. you're referring to.
As far as the rest of the list for that role, it's kind of all over the place. Which it includes Kyle MacLachlan, Val Kilmer, Robert Downey Jr., Kevin Spacey, and then fucking
Kevin Spacey.
Jesus, fucking Daniel Stern. Like, I don't know.
To me, the outlier there is Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
What was he doing around that time? Because I don't see him as being like the, hey, we
that
need a drug
was-
dealer
That
criminal.
had to be like right around.
Yes.
I mean, that was only a couple years
Not a
before
criminal.
Usual Suspects, right?
Yeah, that was
yet.
before Usual Suspects, right?
Yeah.
What was he in before Usual Suspects? When was Glenn Ross?
Glenn Ross? That was before?
I don't know. I'm asking.
Oh, I still haven't seen that movie.
All you really need to see is the Alec Baldwin speech.
That's it?
yeah.
The rest of it's
Yeah,
just
that's all.
boring?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
fine.
a lot of.
I just pulled up Kevin Spacey, and then one of the links is discography. I'm like, I'm not clicking on that.
Got it. Right.
Glenn
Okay.
Gary was 92 also. Yeah.
He was in a bunch
So
of
that would've
stuff.
been like right before he blew up.
Yeah, like
That's what I'm saying. It's like he wasn't really a big name back then. I don't think.
Yeah.
no.
Compared to all the other names on that list.
That would have been a weird one to
Well, I mean, was Daniel Stern big at that? I mean, yeah, because Home Alone,
Home Alone and all
yeah.
that shit, and
Home Alone.
City Slickers, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Home Alone hadn't come out.
Home Alone came out around at the same time as this.
I think it came out in 90.
No, it came out the same time as the same time as Kindergarten Cop. So yeah, it was this. It hadn't come out before when they were casting. Anyway, they eventually hired Richard Tyson, like we said, which 3 O'clock Eye. Is it actually good? I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
it is. It's such a fun movie. It's
Okay,
very
because I
simple,
remember
but it's fun.
loving it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But, so moving on, the role of Arnold's partner, Phoebe O'Hara. Catherine O'Hara obviously was considered, but
Yeah, obviously. Everyone knows
once they couldn't hire an actress that had the same name, they supposedly considered Emma Thompson and then Harold Ramis with the role supposedly rewritten to being a female character after he declined, and then they hired Pamela Reed.
Did they try to go for the O'Hare Airport?
Kindergarten air traffic controller.
My favorite one from IMDb is definitely for Eleanor Crisp, who was Crisp,
The mom.
Yeah, Crisp. Anyway, which says they offered the role to Audrey Hepburn, who was at the time was basically retired from acting. Like she had semi-retired from acting in I looked it up, 1967, only to returning for like 4 roles before she died in 1993. Some say from regret.
Regretted passing on this role.
Oh wait, no. Wikipedia says it's cancer. Never mind. Sorry. But yeah, like what's that? The one role that she's like, oh man, like on her deathbed.
The one that got away.
That was like her Rosebud moment. Was Kindergarten Cop. I don't know. It was just like, okay, that one's probably not real.
Instead of Rosebud, she died saying, "It's not a tumor." And the doctor's like, "Actually, it is a tumor."
That's sad. Well, she'd only done 4 movies, and one of them was by a Spielberg movie. So it's like she's like, I'm going to do a Spielberg movie, and then after that, the next year, I'm going to do an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I don't know. Anyway, so according to this totally real bit of trivia from IMDb, B. Arthur was also considered but couldn't get away because of Golden Girls, which I don't know.
Yeah, that would work, I guess.
Yeah, sure. And then Laura McCall.
She seems too comical because the role, even though it's a silly movie, that role was like kind of like mean and serious.
Yeah, it's just kind of sinister the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I don't know. No.
Lauren Bacall.
Maybe Susan Sarandon. Was she old enough at the time? I don't think she was.
I think so.
No, I don't think so.
And then finally the kids, who I just grouped together as one individual because I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, so these ones are actually all true, but apparently the filmmakers auditioned more than 2,000 children to play the 30 kids in Kimball's class.
Can you imagine the nightmare of that casting process?
God.
Jesus.
I think he said they did it 100 kids at a time, I think, which sounds like way too many. But
What do you mean 100
Yeah.
kids?
What do they, Lord of the Flies? I'm like, all right, put 100 in a room, see who comes
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
I mean, if you put
Survives.
100 in a room and I don't know. Even, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, what would you have them do? Just play? Like, you have to have them recite the line? I
have
just
to do
guess.
something.
Well, because all it is basically like, I'm assuming these weren't, I mean, maybe they were for the main kids, but if they weren't for the main kids, you're basically just seeing how they listen, right? Like, if they can listen.
Sure.
So,
I guess.
or follow direction rather. But anyway, so Elijah Wood has talked about how he auditioned for a role but didn't get it because I guess it was the worst audition he ever did. He didn't say which part though. I'm assuming, so I'm just going to assume it was for Zach's dad, but he couldn't get it because he couldn't like believably take a punch to the stomach. Oh. Anyway,
He'd make a good Lowell with his weird face.
I don't know. Anyway, for the role of Dominic, they were originally open to cast like twins of either gender, basically. They were just looking for twins.
Right, so they can work them double.
Exactly, like because of those stupid child labor laws, and it was a bigger role. But
They're looking for twins because Arnold was obsessed ever since his movie Twins. Like, we got to find twins. There needs to be A connection.
Did you guys? But okay, so the next thing's about the 2020 cast reunion. Like during like they did a partial cast reunion through Zoom in 2020.
That sounds sad.
Yeah,
Partial reunion through Zoom.
and it was just the kids, or a few of the kids. So you had one of the kids that played Dominic, the two girls, like the twins.
Got it.
The kid that spits out the Cheetos on Arnold when he pulls them up, and then the little redheaded Mr. Kimball, are you all right? And the one that says stranger, yeah, that kid.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so during that Zoom meeting, Tiffany and Crystal Materas, who played the two twin girls whose dad was a sex machine, but they revealed that they
Our
also
dad likes to fuck.
which was weird because in that interview they kept talking about our dad loved that line. I was like, okay.
All right.
Our dad, he's actually the one that suggested it. We were supposed to say something different.
It was a very awkward interview, but they revealed that they auditioned for the role of Dominic, but it eventually went to Joseph and Christian Cousins, who one of the guys was on there. But so none of you watched that, right? That Zoom reunion?
No.
No.
I can't imagine why it would.
No, exactly.
That seems like when you go to Comic-Con and there's someone who is a star in the 70s sitting alone at an autograph booth.
Do you ever feel bad for him and just go up and?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Do you
always feel.
I feel bad when I walk by.
Okay, you're like, I'm not going to go up to him.
I'm not gonna be the one.
You probably could like exchange information and stuff like that, depending on how long he's been sitting there with no one talking to him.
The thing is, typically, I mean, in my experience at least, even though no one's there, they still are trying to charge for stuff. So like, I'm not gonna give this guy $20.
Maybe you can haggle with him at that point.
It's basically panhandling on a different level at that point.
I'm doing it out here. I'm doing it outside the convention center. So I don't know. But I ended up watching that Zoom reunion because of this, and it's extremely awkward to start. And because it starts off with just some of the actors who played the kids. And
How long is it?
It's about an hour.
Oh my God. I was going to say, if it's more than 15 minutes, it's just, what are they doing?
So about 35 minutes into it, they start getting a little more comfortable, and all they're doing is talking about filming and just like stuff they remember about it. And some of it, which is stupid because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I should probably write that down. And then I didn't, but then I'm not going to go back and watch it again. So I was like, okay, well, I guess we're not going to mention that. So
just stitch that hour into this pod.
Right here. But about 35 minutes into it, just as they start getting more comfortable, the host brings in Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it just goes right back to awkward because he basically takes over the meeting. And of course, what they were talking about before, which I was actually enjoying because like they were talking like trivia facts, but
yeah,
he takes over the meeting and then like starts asking each one of them what they were doing, but like just the person and nobody else is talking. And then the person will kind of answer, but you can tell he can't really hear very well because he's basically how I'd imagine having a Zoom meeting with my grandpa would go. It's just weird because he's like, and what were you doing? And then that person will talk for a second. He's like, oh, and then one of them does magic now. He's like, I love it. Oh, okay, goodbye. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess he's gone.
Oh my God.
He's like, we should do something again. Well, see ya. I don't know. It was entertaining, but awkward. Anyway. Okay. So moving on. The last couple things that I have as far as the casting are just extra little tidbits. So the first one, this one is possibly untrue, IMDb, but originally the principal was going to be male and was supposedly, they wanted Rick Moranis to play the role, but he passed and they switched it to female and hired Linda Hunt.
Kind of works.
Which again, yeah. Next, this one actually I was able to confirm, but Stephen Root, who's probably most
I
known
love Stephen
for
Root.
what he's like Milton from Office
Jimmy
Space.
James from News Radio.
There you go. Yeah, like I don't know what else is he in? He's done a ton of
King
stuff.
of the Hill.
Fugues from Barry.
Yeah. Barry.
Fuchs.
Anyway, so Stephen Root originally had 5 scenes that were part of a subplot that ended up being cut from the film. So, do you remember how I mentioned that Kimball and O'Hara never contacted the Astoria police? Like, that it was weird?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Stephen Root's character was credited as sheriff, so I'm assuming that was like a subplot that was cut. I don't know.
Yeah.
So they actually did. But apparently no one noticed, because I didn't notice until this last time. But anyway, the final bit of casting info I could find. So the baseball bat that O'Hara uses on Old Lady Crisp was played by a Don Mattingly model Louisville Slugger. Yeah, who just hit that roll out of the park. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so the film's budget was anywhere between $15 million, which was listed on IMDb, and $26 million, which was from the Hollywood Reporter. So let's say $22 million.
It's a pretty safe range, though. Sometimes you see like $10 million to $50 million.
Yeah.
Filming lasted from May 31st to late August 1990, with them starting in Astoria, Oregon for the first month, then filming the remainder in Los Angeles, supposedly in Skid Row in downtown LA, and then the mall scenes were shot at South Coast Plaza in Santa Ana. So speaking of the mall scene, according to the AMC story notes, apparently that whole scene set there and possibly everything up until they head to Astoria, they designed it down to the lighting and camera angles to parody the look of the Terminator. And I think it's up to the plane scene. Like the AMC story note thing only says it was for the first part of Kindergarten Cop, so I'm not sure, but I can definitely see it.
Well, yeah, we talked about that. Like from the opening scene, you get that vibe.
Yeah,
like he's that same kind of character. It's the same kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Like definitely in the mall.
And even like that club, which was just like a chain link fence around, like, this is like dystopian, futuristic.
Well, it's like in the first one, was it called Club Noir or something like that? Tech Noir?
Tech Noir.
Oh, yeah, the club.
Anyway, moving on. Astoria Elementary was actually played by John Jacob Astor Elementary School. Did a pretty good job. And so with actual students from the school playing extras, and they were paid $35 a day, which good for them. Anyway, fun fact, the school was actually used as a model for the school in the very first Silent Hill game in 1999, which...
Oh, nice.
The last couple of things about filming in Astoria, Arnold gave a commencement speech to the 1990 graduating class of Astoria High School.
But it was very awkward because you just want to graduate. Okay, what are you doing now? Okay, excellent, goodbye.
Every single person that walked through. And then Astoria was actually the first place that Schwarzenegger laid eyes on a Humvee, which I swear to God, this is true.
Changed the course of human history.
He eventually had a hand in getting GM to begin producing them for the general public.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
He thought they were so cool. He wanted one, like the actual the military, like the stripped down.
Yeah.
He's like, I want one of these. And then people are like, holy shit, he's driving a Humvee. And they're like, we should market this shit.
Yes, exactly. Which, this is where he's the first time he saw one. Okay, so all the classroom scenes were shot at Universal Studios Hollywood, with the kids constantly climbing all over Arnold when they weren't shooting. And I guess, which sounds weird, but I guess he would make them do jumping jacks to try and calm them down a bit. Yeah. He's like, I just incorporated fitness. That's his answer for everything, and he's never wrong about it because apparently it
works.
Yeah, apparently filming those scenes with the 30 kids was just super fun. With Ivan Reitman telling the LA Times in 1990, quote, "After the first day of filming, I was in a sweat. My shirt was all wet, my voice was hoarse, and I had this really panicked look in my eyes. So I developed the 5 Reitman rules of filmmaking, which were listen, act natural, know your character, don't look in the camera, and discipline." I think those are just for kids. But he doesn't say that.
It works for Arnold, too.
End quote. But he then says the Pledge of Allegiance scene was difficult to shoot due to it being a close-up dolly shot as it's like moving down a line of kids, and they wouldn't stay still. Yeah. So to get their attention, or to keep their attention, Reitman said, he's like, I would walk beside the camera waving something so they would be distracted. And I was constantly talking while filming was going on, reminding them what their lines were. I kind of became a cheerleader, which I just think it's funny. They're like babies, to where it's like, look at the.
When he said it was difficult to shoot that scene, my first thought was like, because the parents up there are very like, I don't know, they're like anti-government and fascist. We're not having our kids say that.
Yeah, exactly. And for some reason, I'm not sure why, but he never did another film like with kids after this. So I don't know,
because his 5 rules didn't work.
Yeah. So Penelope Ann Miller told People magazine in 1993 that she taught Arnold Schwarzenegger to kiss on camera. Which,
wait. Had he not kissed?
I was just thinking, like
he had, because Kelly Preston, at least Kelly Preston. So there was a quote. It was something like you gotta you can't like make it look like you're swallowing each other. You got so I kind of told him like to like hold me behind my back and bring me in slowly and then kiss me or something like that. Yeah. So just to like, I don't know, maybe he just like.
Yeah, I mean, like compare that to Conan when he tried to kiss that camel. And it was just...
He missed and it got his fist. Yeah. Punched it accidentally. He was trying to kiss it. He wasn't trying to punch it. Anyway, so as far as the release, Kindergarten Cop was released domestically on December 21st, 1990. Probably making $11.2 million on its opening weekend, but I don't know, Box Office Mojo has it listed at 7.9 million, but Kindergarten Cop is the only movie they have listed that weekend. So unless every theater was like, fuck it, Kindergarten Cop's coming out, we're closing down and we're only playing that. Like those numbers aren't right. So we're going with the other ones. 11.2 million. Debuted at in the number 2 spot its opening weekend, with Home Alone taking that number 1 spot. Yeah. By the way, Home Alone had already been out for 6 weeks at this point. It was still the number 1 movie. So
Damn. God, that movie is a fucking...
I didn't actually look how long it was. It like stayed in the number 1 spot, but I'm assuming it had to be through Christmas, because this, what I say, this was December. Oh, I mean, that was through Christmas.
21st?
Yeah.
That was like right before. Yeah.
Because it was a Christmas movie too. So anyway, as far as the rest of the weekend's box office top 10, it's actually a pretty good list for the most part. Like, you had Edward Scissorhands at number 3 with 6 million. Number 4 was Dances with Wolves with 5.9 million. This was also, usually December is around the time they release Oscar contenders too, right?
Oscar, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of awards movies, yeah.
Which is what our next one that's probably why it was released, which was Look Who's Talking 2 with 5.8 million.
Yep. Strong contender.
Number 6 was The Russia House, with 4.4 million, which I've never heard of
I
before.
vaguely remember that,
I don't know what the hell that is.
But it was released the same week, and it starred Sean Connery and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Sean Connery, yeah.
Yeah, it says it was about a British publisher sent a manuscript detailing it basically The Hunt for October 2, it sounds like.
It's like spy stuff.
Yeah, Soviet nuclear missile capabilities. Anyway. Number 7, which was also released that week, was supposedly really bad, which was The Bonfire of the Vanities. I didn't watch that.
Oh, yeah, that was a mess, just production-wise. I never saw it, but I just remember hearing all the stories about what a fucking nightmare it was to make that movie.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise, right?
What was that?
Was it Tom Cruise?
Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, Bruce Willis, and
Tom Hanks, yeah.
Melanie Griffith.
Melanie Griffith, yeah.
That made 4.2 million, and I'm pretty sure ended up bombing too.
Yeah.
But number 8 was Misery with 4.1 million, which is a good movie.
Yeah.
That was on its 4th week. But see, that's where it sounds right. Number 8, 4th week. I mean, right-ish. But anyway, so number 9 was Three Men and a Little Lady, which made 3.5 million. And I definitely remember being bored while watching that in the theater. I know I went and watched that one, which, what a horrible.
Like, this movie sucks. Let's go see Look Who's Talking Too.
Yeah. I like that movie. I mean, it's bad. I'd probably have to watch Three Men and a Little Lady again. I'm like, it might be like, I'm like, this movie's so good. But as of right now, Look Who's Talking 2 is definitely better. Anyway, number 10 was Mermaids, which made 3.3 million.
Cher.
And yeah, Cher, Winona Ryder, and Christine Ricci. I haven't seen a lot of those ones. But it was a good list, I think. Was that one an Oscar one?
Solid.
Or no?
Mermaids?
I don't
know.
I don't remember.
I probably should have looked that up.
I don't think I've seen most of those.
I've seen Look Who's Talking, Dances with Wolves, and Misery. And then the first 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, as we mentioned during the summary, Kindergarten Cop had a 52% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, with most of the critics that gave it a bad review, like the reason for it, were they cited the violence, basically, as a reason why. But mostly...
They didn't like him punching that abusive dad.
Yeah, what?
Okay, wait a second.
Mostly because...
He's just trying to keep his family in line.
Exactly.
What's all this?
Jesus.
That was actually one of the reviews. This is last review too. Anyway, but yeah, it was mostly because it was heavily promoted as a family film, and they were like, this is not really a family film. That and they're prudes, apparently. But Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, and that's really the only one that matters, isn't it? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Gene Siskel didn't like it, but he'd be dead soon.
Yeah,
so
but
what
he
does
doesn't
it matter? Yeah. Sorry, I'm not to cut what I said. We can leave what Dave said there. Anyway, Kindergarten Cop ended up making $91.5 million domestically and then $202 million worldwide, and was 1990's 10th highest grossing movie worldwide, which just must have eaten up Ivan Reitman. Just 10th? Yeah. Gotta be fucking kidding me. And I'm pretty sure it only got worse from there as far as his top 10, so he shouldn't relish that. Anyway, this comes from IMDb, but it sounds like true, so I'm going to include it. Anyway, when the release date was announced for December 1990, Universal Pictures, as well as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Ivan Reitman, were unaware that Home Alone was supposed to be released at the same time. So it says, while Home Alone continued to stay on top, which is bullshit because it had been out for 6 weeks at the time. But
yeah, I was about to say they probably just didn't know it was going to be that strong for that long.
It says while Home Alone would continue to stay at the top, Schwarzenegger started pushing. Thought it would hurt.
Pushing Macaulay Culkin around.
Yeah. You think you're better than me?
I'm working here.
He started pushing for Universal to try to delay the movie to spring in 1991, supposedly, because he didn't want to compete with it, but they said no. Apparently, Schwarzenegger said that he felt that it underperformed compared to Twins due to the competition from Home Alone, which could be true. I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe.
Either way, like I'm sure Home Alone didn't help. It didn't help that Home Alone was released because obviously it would have been the #1 movie. But Schwarzenegger did end up saying years later that the film could have grossed an extra $25 million, which is very specific, by the way.
Yeah.
Like if it was less violent. It's just like, why $25 million? Where did you come up with that?
Yeah. He's calculated the price of every one of his punches.
But Ivan Reitman countered by saying that he felt the violence, quote, had to be there or the film would just peter out at the end.
Ivan Reitman was like, we needed more violence.
He wanted to have a fight club between the kids, but the studio wouldn't let him. Okay. By the way, they did end up making a Kindergarten Cop 2, which I guess was...
Who's they?
I guess Universal, which...
Yeah, just the studio.
It was actually considered a remake and not a sequel, though, because...
it was Dominic's people. He's like, you know what? Let's do this again.
Which wouldn't surprise me, because I don't know what those kids are doing. But by the way, I lied when I said Kindergarten Cop was the only credit from screenwriter Murray Salem, because he also has Kindergarten Cop 2 on there. So he's got 2 credits. But yeah, that it stars Dolph Lundgren. And I think Bill Bellamy, but I'm not positive. Anyway.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're going to end up doing it eventually.
Was that?
I think it was 2017 or 19 or something like that.
That recent?
Yeah, it was recent.
No way.
Yeah.
Jesus. So is Dolph... I don't know. I guess we'll do it eventually. But is Dolph Lundgren the teacher?
Well, he's the cop/teacher. Let's see. It came out in
2016.
There you go, 2016.
Shocking.
Yeah.
That means in like 20 years we'll get like Kindergarten Cop 3. I'm excited.
Yeah, starring someone, I can't think of anyone. I don't know. Okay, so anyway, apparently Arnold also won a Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award for favorite movie actor for this movie, so for the role. Yeah. Which I should have looked up who he was going up against. This is 1990?
1990?
No, it would have been 91 because this came out in December. I don't know how those awards work. It would have had to be for the same.
Hook come out?
Wasn't it like 92 or something?
Was it? I don't know.
Anyway, I'll get you guys talking and then look it up. The second thing was that basically, okay, so he did the show with Stan Lee called Superhero Kindergarten. And
Superhero Kindergarten?
Yes, which I think is what it's called. It's a Netflix show.
Oh, I don't think it was called that, but I could be wrong.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It is?
Yeah, Stan Lee's Superhero Kindergarten.
That is a bad name for that. All right. Anyway.
So he did. That show came from desire to do a sequel to Kindergarten Cop.
Oh,
yeah.
So is he actually in it?
Yes,
or was he just like
is.
the producer?
I took a quick look at the IMDb credits, which I'm assuming we'll get to it eventually. Maybe.
Sure.
It'll just be like a. There's got to be like an episode that's where it's just like all the extra crap. But anyway, yeah. I don't mean crap, but except. I'm sure it's a nice show. Anyway, yes, he's in every episode, I believe. He plays like the teacher, I would assume. But
okay.
Anyway, okay. So let's move on to the clips. Some promo stuff. So pretty much any clips I could find to promote Kindergarten Cop were kind of They were fine. They were just kind of boring, like just regular interview clips.
Yeah.
But I was able to find one from the same year, so we're going to watch that. And then I have 2 more that are from random years, but they all feature Arnold this time. There was one, an Arsenio Hall one that I found that was like disappointing. He was just playing it very straight. Like he's usually like kind of jokey. Really? Like, yeah, there's one for Terminator 2 as well, which I was like, oh, like I've been looking forward to watching it because I was like, all right, Arsenio Hall. But yeah, anyway. Okay. So this first one is from a 1990 interview Arnold did with Lisa Gibbons for Entertainment Tonight. And it's to promote the Tales from the Crypt episode that he directed. Ah. Yeah, they eventually end up talking about his newborn daughter, Catherine, and how he likes being a dad. So yeah, let's take a look at that.
Cool.
On top of his directing debut, Schwarzenegger recently made his debut as a daddy. Seen here leaving the hospital with wife Maria Shriver and baby Catherine, now 9 weeks old.
It's the most exciting thing that has ever happened to me is having this new little baby. And being a girl on top of it, you know how you spoil little girls, you know. And so I have such a wonderful time playing with it every morning when I get up, and when I come home at night, you know, to hang out with it and sitting there in my arms and just watching it. It is just really absolutely fantastic. But the most admirable thing of all is obviously the woman about this whole thing.
I don't know why, but I absolutely love when people who aren't used to being around babies refer to them as it. Like,
Yeah.
they usually don't realize they're doing it. It just makes me laugh every single time. Like, you know, you're calling the baby it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just always funny to me.
And anybody could do it once by accident, but he did it like 4 times in a row there. So clearly that's like how he thinks of it.
Oh, and he did it in the Arsenio one too, but it's just, I don't know, which I get because he's a new dad, not really used to being around kids, but it's just always funny to me. Anyway, okay. Right. So this next one is a 2013 interview that Arnold did with The Sun, which I believe is the kind of like the UK version of TMZ, I think, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I think they're like mostly a tabloid.
Yeah. Anyway, it's for a new web series from The Sun called Bizarre Live Web Chat. And it's not the whole video, so I'm not exactly sure who's interviewing him, but he's there promoting The Last Stand, and there are 2 parts I wanted to show you guys. So the first one is him talking about which movie he regrets not taking. So yeah, go ahead.
There are great Hollywood stories about people like Tom Selleck turning down the chance to be Indiana Jones. Is there one film that you really regret, or one part you regret turning down from King Conan?
Yeah, I remember that Jerry Bruckheimer came to me with a script for The Rock that Sean Connery ended up doing, and Nicolas Cage. And I was offered the Nicolas Cage part. And but it was like 80 pages and with scribbles and handwritten stuff over, and this is shit, and let's not do this page, and let's rewrite this. You know, I looked at this thing as I was in the middle of filming, and I looked at this script and I said, "What is that?" I said, I can commit to that. I said, "Why don't you get your act together and come back with a good script?" Well, in the meantime, they did get the act together, and then they hired Nicolas Cage. And I really loved that movie. I thought it turned out fantastic. And by the way, Nicolas Cage did an extraordinary job. So I don't know if I would have been able to do as good a job as he did. But I mean, I was mad that I turned down that role because it was really a great role. So those things happen. But in the meantime, there's also other situations where I fought for a script and took it away from someone else, and it ended up being a great script. So it's both ways. Like I said, there's really no science behind it.
Okay. First off, that movie would have been like accent-orific if he would have played that part that went to Nicolas Cage.
I can't believe it was for the Nick Cage part. Like, I know he's not as old as Sean Connery, but like...
Exactly. The character.
Yeah, the character, like that just seems
that's exactly different. My next note, which is like Nicolas Cage's character was like he's like mild-mannered, practical, like not submissive, but like the
he's like
subdued,
borderline neurotic though.
Yeah,
in that, which Arnold doesn't really do.
So I'm assuming it would have had to be rewritten if Arnold signed on to it because Sean Connery's character was the Schwarzeneggerian character of the
exactly. Like I would expect him to be playing the former foreign spy who broke out of who was like the one man who broke out of Alcatraz. I don't know. I just feel like he fits that role way better.
Yeah. And you also can't really have all the leads in the movie playing the same character. So he would have had to play a different character. Yeah. Otherwise you just end up with Sabotage, which saw how that went. And then like the other thing is The Rock also came out in 1996, like 2 weeks before Eraser. So there's like some alternate universe where Arnold stars in The Rock with Sean Connery, but then that messes everything up because then like, does Eraser star Nicolas Cage? Or does he end up doing Daylight and Sylvester Stallone signs on to do Eraser? Because who else was there? Jean-Claude Van Damme? Steven Seagal? Neither of those jabronis had the chops to handle Eraser's like big old fat ass, you know? I don't know, like... I was just thinking about that because I was like, sorry, I ended up looking up what they were doing. All those actors were, not Seagal or Van Damme. They weren't going to get those parts.
Yeah, that's
definitely not Seagal.
Yeah, definitely not Seagal. Well, yeah, because he doesn't have a sense of humor, it seems like. But Van Damme was actually apparently huge at this time because this was like when he was on Friends. So I'm assuming that's when he was huge.
That's your metric.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because I was also like, who else was there? It was like Bruce Willis who was doing nothing. I think he did a movie where he's wearing a fedora.
You need 12 Monkeys coming around?
That was his next movie, I think, after this.
Hudson. Okay. I thought Hudson Hawk was earlier. I thought that was like early 90s.
No, Hudson. No, it's like Last Man Standing or something like that. He was on that show.
I don't know what the fuck that is.
What was that, John Belushi?
No, that's the Tim Allen show.
Oh, okay, yeah, Tim Allen. No, sorry. He was doing a movie called Last Man Standing where he's wearing a fedora in the poster. But yeah, gotcha. Stallone was doing like Daylight, which I like, but is, I don't know, more serious.
Is that the Flood movie?
Yeah, it's a Flood movie.
Oh, okay.
Because who could have done Eraser? Anybody, I guess.
Did you guys ever see 12 Monkeys?
I still haven't seen it.
I did once, but I was really high, so I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. They're always really good.
Really?
I've heard nothing but good things about it, but I've never watched it.
I love that movie.
Do you know who directs that? Is that like Terry Gilliam or
Terry
someone?
Gilliam.
Oh, yeah. So it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the movie he did after. This was between, because Pulp Fiction was like 94, wasn't it?
94.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But there was a little gap where he did like some show called, it was like a cartoon called Bruno, because like his like Bruno was like his like character.
Oh,
that
yeah. Like, that's his like music persona, right?
Yeah. He had like Little Bruno, like was a cartoon that he did around that time. So I just saw like, Little Bruno.
Oh my god.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. Sorry. Oh yeah. The second thing I wanted to show you guys from this interview is just Arnold talking about an unusual encounter with the fan. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Where's the most unusual place you've had one of your catchphrases repeated to you?
In really weird places. I mean, I was sitting one time in a toilet, and
good start to a story.
I was sitting next door. I heard a loud fart, and then I heard the toilet flushing, and then someone spitting, and then all of a sudden, I'll be back. The door opened up. I said, that figures in the toilet, you're getting your lines delivered. So it's really weird places, but. It's really interesting with those lines because you don't know when you do the movie.
You can pause it there if you want because that's what he said during the like when he did the other one,
the press conference. Yeah.
I don't know. That just sounded like a shitty situation.
It's stupid.
I'm like, just go first thought, best thought, and it was definitely not the best thought. Stupid. Anyway, okay, and then this last one.
The story just kept getting better, though.
Yeah. This last one is from the year 2000 with Arnold appearing. By the way, every time I say that, as I was writing it down, all I could think of was the Conan O'Brien.
The Conan thing.
Yeah. Because that's how I hear it in my head all the time whenever it says the year 2000. Anyway, so with Arnold appearing on The View to promote the 6th Day, and this is Barbara Walters asking him how things are around the house due to the upcoming 2000 presidential election.
Yeah, right. Before we get to the cloning business, and without talking about candidates and presidents, I just want to know what it is like for you these last couple of weeks when you and Maria are diametrically opposed in who you are. Well, it's
one of those odd things, Whenever Gore was ahead in the polls, Maria was the nicest woman in the house. Oh, honey, darling, don't worry about it. Maybe the next 4 years something better will happen. And you're so wonderful, Arnold, and you're the greatest. As soon as Bush moved ahead in the polls, she started locking the bedroom door. I said, what's going on here? It's like wild.
Regardless of how you feel, your life might be better if Gore ends up winning.
Let me tell you something. It's tough. Things are tough. The other day I said to Marie, hey, let's make love. And she says, okay. Cover me up when you're through. But anyway, I can get no respect at all.
Okay. That's good. Fucking Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Seriously. I don't know.
Arnold Danger Schwarzenegger.
They're just like some interviews where he's on fire, like with the stories and jokes. And it's great because it has like a similar vibe to like a live comedy show when a comic's killing and the crowd is just like hanging on every word. But I don't know. He's definitely doing well with that one. But yeah. That is the last one I have for this. So that's it.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for our production episodes. Thank you very much, Dave, for being on our episode again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess there's really only one thing left to say.
I'll be back.
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yes, definitely.
It's not a tumor.
See you at the party, Richter!
If you enjoy our show, please consider giving us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Potty Richter to make sure you never miss an episode. See You at the Potty Richter is a production of Tape Deck Media. Follow Tape Deck on Instagram at tapedeck_media or look us up on Facebook for more hilarious podcasts.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.